Constitution through this information session. We're very grateful that you're here. And we hope that you will find it to be insightful. We're going to welcome your questions, and we'll have some discussion at the end as well. So please, if something comes up, jot down your question or ask it as it comes up. I think that would be okay too. So, Hewitt, would you start us off with a prayer, please?
Let us pray. God who directs us, lead us. God who leads us, shepherd us. God who is our shepherd, be our guide. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So I'm going to put a presentation up on the screen, and we'll start going through that. And Sharon is going to take us through the first part.
I hope that's Sharon Crosley.
Oh no, it's you, Sharon.
We know you're talented, Sharon Saint, so there you go.
I'm thinking, am I at the right meeting?
So here, as I said, thank you again. Like your time, we appreciate your time and appreciate your interest in the proposed constitution model. So Sharon, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, for background, this new model was to replace the former model of stewards, session, and official board. The chair role was to be filled by a congregation member, freeing the ministry staff to all relate to the board in the same way, and whose numbers better suit the limitations of available volunteers and volunteer time. Collier's membership in 2014 was 574, and today Collier's membership is 354. There are currently 15 board members, including 5 at-large members, 5 resource stewardship reps, 5 ministry purposes conveners, plus ministers. You can see the little names there along the way. Official board members met for a full-day workshop held in November 2019 and a half-day workshop in January 2020 for discussion and exploration of challenges for Collier, goals for 2020, governance model options, carefully looking at models that meet the changing needs of the congregation, particularly limitations of available volunteers with their time, treasure, and talents. A similar challenge was noted in 2014. Looked at responsibilities of session at Collier, accountabilities not presently represented, and a draft board structure option was created. We had consultation with session on March 2nd, 2020, and an overview was provided to the congregation at the AGM on March the 8th, 2020. A governance structure task force was created to work through the details, and the draft constitution, which is still a working document, was prepared. This draft constitution or working document was presented to the official board at both the May and June board meetings as well as at board information sessions. At the June board meeting, this model was approved for recommendation to the congregation. The governance structure task force members are John Hunter, Robin Milani, and myself, Sharon Crossley, all from Session, and Reverend Hewitt Holmes and Leanne Patterson. And I'll turn that over to Leanne now for the rest.
Thank you, Sharon. There are a number of opportunities this model provides. It improves the functioning of our structure in keeping with the number of volunteers, thereby maximizing the use of our resources. It also supports teams coming together and aligned with the board. In my view, there is a closer tie of session work to the board. There's also a focus on looking and moving forward. Leadership, mentorship, and growth was not previously represented. And time, treasure, and talent includes finances and property, along with mission and serving others. These are important updates for both the short and long-term needs of the congregation. Board teams, along with other volunteers, will accomplish the work. The board, as well as teams of the board, can strike a task force to complete specific work within an outlined time frame. The proposed structure includes the same number of board members as we presently have, 15, who will be referred to as elders. There will be 3 teams which are new to the structure, each having co-leaders, and 4 to 10 team members. So looking at the positions on the right, the circles that are outlined in blue, these are standard roles that are currently represented as part of the board and will continue to be represented on the board. But the teams are located over on the left half, and I'll just walk through those for you. Starting at the top, the Worship, Connecting, and Community team will have 4 representatives on the board, consisting of 2 co-team leaders, 1 additional representative, and a UCW rep. The portfolio for this team is the work presently carried out by Session, which includes oversight for effective and meaningful worship life. That includes worship planning, music, communion, baptism, as well as the connecting and community piece, which is improving opportunities for group and community interaction, coordinating and encouraging visitation, and finally maintaining the member and adherent list. There are other activities, that is an overview, so further details are included in the Constitution document itself. The Leadership, Mentorship, and Growth team is a team that is fulfilling representation that wasn't previously part of the board structure and was felt to be a really good add to this. That team will have 3 representatives on the board, 2 co-team leaders, plus 1 additional rep. And the portfolio of work for this team includes strategic planning, leadership development, coaching and mentoring, communication, publication, and growth. And finally, the Time, Treasure, and Talents team will have 2 co-leaders who will sit on the board. Those co-leaders will be the treasurer and the property representative. And the portfolio for this team includes finance, mission and service, both local and national, property matters, and serving others. Some other new things that were introduced in this draft constitution is we have established an executive of the church board, and the executive may make decisions on behalf of the board when the board does not meet. So the board does not meet during the months of July, August, and December on a scheduled basis. The executive of the board would comprise of the chair, secretary, the M&P chair, and the minister. And any decisions are reserved for urgent, important matters or those that require a timely response. There is a limitation on financial implications that the executive can make, which is that the financial decision would not exceed $10,000. And any decisions made are reported at the next board meeting. There's also a more full index that's included after the Constitution itself, and it outlines the positions and responsibilities of those positions of the board and their function, as well as a number of terms and meanings, which provides helpful detail. So we're going to move into a time of discussion on the proposed model. So this is your opportunity to provide feedback and input to the proposed model. And you're invited to look at it in the context of our values. And the Collier values are connection, community, creativity, inclusion, love, transformation, and hope. So I'm going to take the screen down. So in terms of this document and the proposed Constitution, what excites you? And I guess we could all be unmuted for this time of conversation. Sharon, sure. Sharon
I
Saint.
think by looking at the model, I think it would be better communications amongst all the people, rather than having two separate groups. We're kind of all one, even though we'll meet as our individual group. I think it would be better communicated to people.
Great. Yeah, that would certainly be a hope that communication, coordination, things like that will be improved for sure.
This could save on double meetings, depending what it's all about.
Yeah, like the teams of the board will meet separately, right? They'll and then there'll be the representatives from those teams that would also attend the board meetings when they happen, and they're scheduled 9 times a year. We said the teams of the board in the Constitution should meet not less than quarterly.
Okay.
So, but then it would be based on what, you know, what the work or the targets, the goals might be. There might be a time where, you know, more meeting or more time together makes sense, but other times not. So.
Okay.
Anyone else for what excites them? You're all looking like you're in the
It's so hard to
afternoon.
get it.
That could be
Turn
Terry.
that phone off.
Oh, Sharon's. I think
Did
one
you
of
have a
the,
glass of wine at dinner? Sorry, go ahead, Robin.
I think one of the things that is exciting is that it recognizes that there are changes that are happening, not only in our church, but in the community as well. And it just seems to me that with the different things that have been added, that we're looking to that. And it's giving us an opportunity to open up different subjects and topics and to initiate programs. And I think that's exciting.
Mhm. Definitely, yeah.
Great.
Can you be on more than one
I-
committee?
I think the challenge that we would want to look at, I don't know that I can say yes or no necessarily, is that you just don't want to have volunteer burnout. And if people are stretched too far, that's, that's the challenge. I mean, there will be UCW members that are part of UCW that would be potentially part of, one of the board committees. And I see that, of course, would be happening. But for the board committees, more than likely, we're going to see a person on one team. I would say that's likely. And the reason that will hopefully happen is we get diversity then of diversity of people's viewpoints.
Okay.
And then we're all in this, but we're looking at it from a particular point of view. So we have more people involved in that way as well. So it is in keeping with the more current challenges around volunteerism and the number of volunteers that we have. But you then have as many people as we can involved at that board committee level. And then you get lots of different viewpoints, which I always feel like we're stronger when we all share our own experiences and have our own inputs so that we, make the best decision that we can for the church as a whole. And we can then look at all the different inputs that come from all the folks that are involved.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I know for me, one of the things that I find really encouraging too, and this was part of what came from other board members as well, was the looking forward and moving forward phase. So we have a team that's looking at leadership, mentorship, and growth. And one of the things that team will be responsible for is looking ahead when we have someone who's in a leadership role, and that leadership role, like you have a certain amount of time that you're in it, they'll be looking for someone to be able to be prepared to take over when that other term and when that first person's term is ending. So they'll not just be, trying to find somebody, they'll actually be ready to go and be, and so from the point of view of looking forward and moving forward, we're not stalled anywhere when a new leader has to kind of get the sense of where they're at and get their legs under them. They'll be ready to go. And so I think that will be very powerful for us to really move things forward. So things like Robin was saying, changes and, looking at those sorts of things. Well, that's helpful to be ready to go for those new things that we hope to be able to deal with. Anyone else on anything about what excites them? How about anything that troubles you? Recognizing that it is change.
Mhm.
And so change was listed as a positive. And sometimes it can be challenging as well.
I'm aware that we're not supposed to have one person, taking a lot of time for the group. But if no one else, if you're still all thinking of what you're thinking of, there's one thing that I would like to. And Leanne, can I raise different points when I was on the governance committee and should have all this, worked out already. But one of the things that I'm wondering about is in the role model. If you go back to the role model, right at the first, is that in all of that, there's nothing there that relates to communication with the congregation. And I know that we have the communications policy, and it does outline in that policy, but without reference to the fact that there is that has been considered and is now in a policy. I'm wondering if that is something that would cause people to maybe want to go learn more on that point in particular. We've got a reference made to the harassment policy and to the ministry and personnel handbooks, but this really is now, I think, an official document for Collier's congregation in particular. And I just wondered if there might be some reference in that original setup there as a model.
Yeah, and I'm just taking a look because I know there is a communication piece in the leadership, mentorship, and growth team.
Yes, that is correct.
Communication and publication, creating communication strategies, both internal and external,
yes.
that support the mission and vision. And there's another communications portion in the time, treasure, and talent team, I believe it is.
Yes, I've read that too. And I'm just talking about it being something that's prioritized and along with the other things in that model of as you presented it first. I know that thing, I know that's there, but I'm just wondering if in terms of people wanting to know, if that might be something you want to put in that original role model.
You mean in the slide presentation, Robin?
Yeah, it's a model. Our role model is for communication with our congregation,
Yeah,
etc., as described in our communications policy, that kind of stuff.
Oh, I see. Okay. Because yes, there's another part of communication under Worship Connecting and Community team.
That is,
which is through like newsletters, like we do the link, the e-newsletter as well. So, okay, I think I think I understand what you're saying.
Just a thought,
so.
Just a thought. Yeah, just a thought.
Sure.
Well, wouldn't that be the chair person? Like if it's something that needs to be brought to the congregation's attention, if it's serious enough, then wouldn't it be the chair who presents that to the congregation?
If we have a congregational meeting, yes, there's a role that the chair fills, generally speaking, as the chair of the congregational meeting.
Yeah.
The communications policy talks about the way we want to communicate with one another, not what we would communicate about, but the way we want to communicate with each other and relate with one another.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the communications policy. Then in general, more general terms, communication is addressed in the Constitution by way of the regular newsletters that we do now under the Worship Connecting and Community team, and then communications, broader communication strategies, and including publication, and is under the Time, Treasure, and Talents team. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with the communications policy. It is on the website. It was rolled out. It was approved at the April board meeting. It was highlighted in an e-newsletter, but perhaps there's an opportunity to share that more broadly or more specifically, highlighting, you know, because it talks about the way that we want to communicate with one another.
I think sometimes we rely on everybody reading things, and sometimes I think it wouldn't hurt whether it's maybe on a quarterly basis, just a brief overview to the congregation verbally. You know, it doesn't have to be too detailed, but just say, you know, this is what we're working on, this is where we're heading, you know, we're having a problem with this, you know, just to give the congregation a whole update at once, instead of them getting little pieces here and there and, you know, maybe misinterpreting things. Sometimes I think just a few words, and it wouldn't have to be a long, it would just have to be, you know, just don't let them leave after the sermon, you know, just have it before they would leave, and you know, I think that would go a long way to helping people understand what's going on.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
Sorry, Robin, the term that I've heard for that is like a town hall meeting.
Yeah.
It sounds like you would have a bit of a structure in terms of an update, but allow sort of for questions and things.
Yeah.
Is that, sorry, Robin, please go ahead.
well, I just feel that if there's some mention of that, I know it is in the roles, etc. But if there's something up front about that in our Constitution, that is the process that we'd like to see. So, are we in these times that we're together like this? Are we going to go through the roles of the different committees and so on? Is that part of your plan, Leanne, so that we do know the details? Or how are we going to know if there's something that really that we would like to address?
Yeah, the idea was that, the idea for these sessions, which are continuing through the rest of the summer, bi-weekly and into the fall, the thought was that people who decide to attend would take a look at the executive summary or the Constitution document, you know, in detail. So this is to provide an overview of that, and then you know, and to talk about any, you know, questions or concerns and what excites them and what troubles them. Not to be a presentation to go through all of the detail. I think it's best for people to read through that themselves. And it's all available with links on the main page of the website, which you've probably all have seen, and we've highlighted in the e-newsletter as well. So that's my thinking. I'm open to hearing, you know, Sharon Crossley or Hewitt, you know, any other thoughts about that, but that's my thinking.
Okay. In terms of communicating inviting people to look at that Constitution, if they don't feel comfortable in coming and sharing at a meeting for whatever reason, could someone else write down what they would like to make known? Or is it only valid if they themselves come to this meeting and express what they're feeling or what they think should be added or whatever? And I'm not talking about personal agendas now. I'm just talking about ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I think if someone they need to stand behind their feedback. So ideally, if they're able to participate in one of these sessions, that would be great.
Right.
They could write their feedback with their name to it if they you know. But this kind of session being interactive is I think a better solution.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So ideally, you know, people would feel comfortable doing that. But we don't, the third party or, you know, that's not an appropriate means of getting feedback. So somebody saying, oh, somebody told me or somebody said, that's not helpful. So it really needs to be like your own feedback or yeah. And this type of interactive session is really the ideal if because we can have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially given, you know, that we can't be all together yet at this point, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I think the timing, A, being summer and B, being COVID, is preventing people from being here to participate or being, you know, wanting to take the time to look it over. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but it's a sign of the time.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I mean, I was thinking, what else are we doing this summer since we're not traveling? We're not, you know, I thought, you know, doing these throughout the summer would get us started with some feedback, but it is looking like there are still people taking holidays and being away. But we are going to continue into September, right? And we can go longer if we need to. So, but I mean, I was looking at it like my summer was, what else am I going to be doing? But of course, I'd like to be on a Zoom call with a bunch of people on Tuesday evenings every other week. So I figured everybody would feel like that.
Of course we do.
Sometimes a break's lovely. Oh, dear.
Yeah, well, because we also,
oh, dear.
Yeah, and when we don't have worship for 3 weeks in August, you know, one of those other sessions that falls in that span might also be not highly attended. But we shall see. I mean, it's always valuable no matter who is able to join us. So I think there's always good input. So
that's true. Yeah.
You folks can tell people how great it was and how they need to sign up for a future session.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I mean, we recognize that this is an important consideration for Collier, and we're doing this in as transparent a way as possible. You know, publicizing the documents on the website. We've scheduled six sessions so far. I think before the September board meeting. So, you know, hoping to get some good input and feedback that we can relate back to the board, and then decide if we need to, you know, have a few more sessions too. I don't know if any would be able to be done face to face, because it all depends on what happens come the fall, right? So this is the pandemic world that we're living in right now. So we're doing it the most effective way that we can. And hope that, you know, people are interested, because it's important for Collier's future too. So that's, I get excited about it because of that, and where we can go. So I hope others feel that way as well.
I have a question. If in September, like this constitution or this change obviously will not have passed or taken place yet, do we still go ahead with the session September meeting? And then how do you,
I
how,
personally
how,
would see that happening because we
So
still
there's no change.
need that, exactly, yeah.
yeah,
And we do
We're still
need that
under the
connection.
current,
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, and we're under the current constitution until or if and when the new one is approved. So the former continues, and that means the former structure continues. So we won't change any of those things.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Will there be a meeting in the fall, a congregational meeting to approve this?
If we can meet in the church.
Yeah, I think my thinking at this point is that we've got these information sessions planned until September, which is before the board meeting. And we'll determine if we've had, I think we will be making that decision then, John. And I don't know if we can be face-to-face. I think we're going to always have an online component if there is an opportunity to have a congregational meeting, because not everyone can physically attend, and we're going to have limits imposed on being together. Our space even limits how many people can gather, right? Because we have the physical distancing requirements. So I don't know if that will happen in September as yet. I think we want to see the participation in these sessions. And the board had mentioned that the sessions, these information sessions would continue through September, October. And so, maybe there are going to be a number of people away during the summer, and we'll have an overwhelming response come the fall, and need to have a few more. There is a requirement to hold a congregational meeting to table approval of the Constitution. Yes, how that's going to happen is it's just unknown at this point, because we don't know exactly how we can even gather. So I do know of another congregation, a bit smaller, that held a congregational meeting through, was like a phone meeting, right? Where most people were on the phone. It wasn't on Zoom. So it's possible to do it remotely as well. Zoom is very powerful. It's much better in my mind because you've got visual as well. And I expect there'll be a component that will require an online presence anyway to allow as many people to participate. But I don't know when that meeting's going to happen at this point. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Yes.
Personally, I would far rather see it as a live
In person.
live
Getting back together again.
meeting, but like you say, I guess all we can do is hope that can happen.
Well, is this a state of emergency that this be passed? I'm getting the impression that there is time, Leanne. We're not meeting as a church. We don't have these challenges because nobody's in the church. So therefore, just in terms of congregation being part of the passing of this new constitution, is there any reason why we can't wait until everybody can come back again? We can resume business as usual?
Yeah, the only thing about the delay is that it delays us having a structure that actually better meets the needs of the church with respect to the number of volunteers that we have, and a structure that starts to move forward. So, because we may not physically be together the way we might be thinking of being together for some time. If we're thinking back to the way it was in February, you know, before COVID, we're not necessarily going to be able to gather in that way for some time. And when we're able to gather, it's going to be in numbers that are supported with the required physical distancing and masks, and I mean, all of those precautions that we're all taking every day. So there are challenges with respect to that face-to-face meeting too. I would rather not, you know, put it off indefinitely, recognizing that we need to have provided ample opportunity for people to provide input, which is
That's a
where
good
these
point.
sessions come in.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to continue into the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are away in the summer or kind of disconnected from church, then, you know, hopefully we'll get more reconnected come the fall. But it's a challenging time, that's for sure. So I mean, as I said, I wouldn't want it to be put off indefinitely, but it's not urgent from the point of view of it has to happen in the next 4 weeks or anything like that.
What would be the
Karen?
what would be the number of people to agree? Like when our congregation is 354, I know you're not going to get 354 people out to a meeting, but what percentage do we need to pass this? Like, is there a number?
So Hewitt is the expert. Yeah, Hewitt is the expert on this. From my understanding, it is an official congregational meeting if 20 people, it's not a percentage, I believe it's a number, and it's 20 people. Now Hewitt can correct me, I don't know, but he's the best one to describe that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're right in terms of what is the actual requirement of a congregational meeting. We just need to make sure that we give adequate notice and at least 20 people, irrespective of the size of our congregation.
Okay.
That's the minimum. The change of the Constitution is a 2/3 majority of those present. So that basically changes the Constitution. So whatever is present, 2/3 of that is what changes the Constitution.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Sorry, Sharon, you had your hand up too. Sharon Fiend.
I was just thinking, you've put so much work into this and you've moved forward with all this planning, and you're at a certain stage to almost make it into effect. It'd be a shame to have to wait 6 months or a year or 2 years because we'll never get back to that normal again. And you would have to repeat all this again. And some of the people that maybe are involved now may not be involved next year because their terms could be up. You know, so I think you've done the right things by introducing these sessions. And if it wasn't for Sharon Crosley to send out that reminder, I probably wouldn't have been here tonight. But I would just happen to go through my emails and thought, oh yes. So I didn't sign on until about 4:30. But, that did help, the reminder. And it is a shame that we haven't got more people, but it may be an email, Sharon, to say how serious this is, that we have their attention at this to eventually move forward. We have, I think it's great that we're able to do at least this, at least to communicate during Zoom. If we didn't have this sort of thing, it would be very difficult to proceed with anything. But I would hate to see that it be halted just because we don't have a lot of people up to date on any of this, when it's so visible for them on the website, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Appreciate that.
I can certainly send out reminders before each
Yeah, and that helps.
session
And
coming up, and
how serious it is that they take part. It's only an hour, take part in this, in order for to, ask questions. This is their opportunity.
and we did talk about the possibility of presenting at the session meeting as well,
Mhm.
in case people don't make our other meetings that are scheduled. So I guess that's another chance, for at least session and the board to be involved.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I also just want us to know that it's quite likely that we will have the presentation in worship on the 13th of September. So whether we are worshiping in the sanctuary or worshiping virtually, we will be worshiping virtually anyways. But the 13th of September, we will have the presentation done as a part of the worship, which means you won't have a sermon that day, just a little reflection. But it would be the presentation.
No joke.
You might have. Do you want to give the dates of the session, because the next information session, because this session is being recorded and we will determine whether we put it up or not. So if we want to just give all the dates of all the session, then that would be good.
Do you have those handy, Leanne?
Yes, yes.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, the upcoming sessions are August 11, August 25, September 8, and September 15. And those are all via Zoom. And the link is located on Collier's website.
Same time.
Mhm.
Same time, 8 p.m., yes. And the executive summary as well as the full Constitution working document are available on the Collier website as well.
Mhm.
I just want to make a comment about the Constitution. As I've said to the board, the Constitution is the frame that our congregation is using to continue that work of building our community. And it's just the frame. Not all the pieces are going to be in place. Not all the areas are going to be in place. We get the opportunity to put on the fittings to make it work in our way. And so I just want you to bear that in mind, that the work is going to be complete as we do it, as it unfolds itself by our doing. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is, this Constitution gives the opportunity for us to test whether we are, as a community, how we are able to manage change. And it is going to test again how we are able to manage change. The third thing is, it will help to deal with the reality of our reduced volunteer numbers. It will help, but it is not necessarily the full solution. For the full solution is going to be in how we continue to make the ministry happen through the different teams. So somebody said to me 2 days ago, Hewitt, we need to grow. Oh yeah, we do. But guess what? It's easier said than done. It's absolutely easier to say that than do it. And so my question to the person was, how are we going to do that? And so we really need to intentionally sit down as a congregation to talk about that. And that's why the leadership, mentorship, and growth team is going to be so important to that process.
Mhm.
And so we can't just say that we need to do this without us collectively wrapping our heads around it. And the final point I want to make is, let us remember that this is a community effort. It's a Collier effort. And that our individual intentions, good intentions, are important, but they must be held in the pool. They must be held in the bowl. They must be held together. All our efforts and our intentions must be held together. And no intentions or no efforts is more greater than the other, for all are treated the same way. And so let's bear that in mind, that even if we individually don't get what we want, let's bear in mind that this is a community effort. And if it is a community effort, sometimes we have to just live with it. And that doesn't mean that you're going to live with something that you don't want, but you're living with it, hoping that your voice will continue to influence others so that it becomes our voice. And that's what we are looking for. Not just Hewitt's voice, but a voice that is our voice, which is Collier's voice. And that's at the heart of the vision. That's at the heart of living out that vision through what we're offering to the congregation in this model of leadership. The leadership that we offer in this model is not separated from the congregation. No amount of effort or no effort will be spared to keep the congregation at the center and at the forefront of what we do. That's just who we are. We will not do anything to put the congregation aside, because that's not the leadership that I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of a leadership that holds the congregation as God's at the center of who we are, but knowing very well that this is all of us doing and not just some of us doing, but it has to be all of our doing. And so this is a good opportunity for us to think about who we are as a community, think about what it is that we are hoping to achieve through this new model. But let's know that this frame is just the frame. The building is ours to unfold and to make happen, because this is God's ministry given to us, and we are just mere servants, stewards of the resources entrusted to us.